You are not allowed to participate in the processes of the debate. The participation includes taking of photos using your phones or your cameras or your tablet and clapping of hands. That is not allowed, unfortunately, but we really welcome you and we acknowledge your presence. I can still see some cameras happening. Please, let that not happen. We have to start. We have already started. I'm now going to ask the secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote number 39, Rural Development and Land Reform.
I'm now going to invite the Honorable Minister of Rural Development to open the debate.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament, Bagadi Fokeng, Batoma Fatanga Matelele, officials of the department, our partners and stakeholders in rural development and land reform, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to present the budget vote speech for the Department, Rural Development and Land Reform in the year that we celebrate the centenary of the birth of the father of our nation, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and Mama Albertina Sisulu. It is in this year, when we commemorate the centenary of Madiba, that we should remember that in 1994, the first law to be passed by the first democratically elected parliament was the Restitution of Land Act, Act 22 of 1994. This was done with a conscious acknowledgement of land justice, and it's important to deal with the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. In 1995, barely a year into our democracy, Madiba recalled that, and I quote, "With freedom and democracy last year came restoration of the land, the right to land, and with it, opportunity to address the effects of centuries of dispossession and denial." At last, we can say our people can say to our ancestors, look into our ancestors in the face and say, "Your sacrifices were not in vain," close quote. Madiba understood the importance of ensuring that land returned to the dispossessed masses of our people. He understood that land redistribution, restitution, and security of tenure are important elements of the covenant to build a society in which all South Africans, black and white, will be able to walk tall, assured of all the inalienable rights to human dignity. During the handing over of land to the Kremlin community in 1998, Madiba reminded us that, and I quote, "South Africans have fought wars with each other over land. Bitter feuds have raged. People have died for it. In this regard, South Africa is no different from most countries in the world. But in our country, the dispossession of land was also part of the oppressive apartheid system set us on one against each other. By making most South Africans landless in the country of their own birth, that system produced inequality, division, and poverty," close quote. The 54th African National Congress Conference resolution on land expropriation without compensation brings into sharp focus the challenges of land reform, including the slow pace and high land prices that have distorted the land market, impending speedy redress of land imbalances. In his State of the Nation address, His Excellency President Ramaphosa committed the government to accelerate the land redistribution program, not only to address a grave historical injustice, but also to bring more producers into agricultural sector. Our people are sick and tired of belonging to the second economy as they used to be second-class citizens in their own country. They now want to play not a role, but be main players in the economy of South Africa, because land is an economic asset. Not just about plowing potatoes and standing on the corner of the street and boiling a bag of peanuts and standing on the corner of the street and it rots and you go back home. But that we go into the mainstream of the economy. Land is an economic asset. So it will mean that we will live and play and be educated where we want to be, because that's what freedom, our freedom, is about. In this context, the President committed the government to pursue a comprehensive strategy that makes effective use of all mechanisms at our disposal, and that this strategy will include consideration of expropriation without compensation in the light of the Congress of the ruling party that I've just referred to. During the debate, the President further emphasized that the dispossession of land through the 1913 Land Act was just another thorn on our flesh. He refers to it as an original sin. The international community through the United Nations refers to it as a crime against humanity. In line with the parliamentary process underway now, we are appealing that we all participate in the constitutional review process, because it's a parliamentary process on this issue of expropriation of land without compensation. Our department will contribute to this debate, including providing our position on the modalities and policies and policy implications. In pursuit of radical socio-economic transformation, we are determined to ensure that land ownership becomes indeed economic assets for our people, because that's what we're about. While parliamentary process unfolds, the department will continue to advance land reform through existing programs of land restitution, land redistribution, and land tenure reform, using the existing constitutional provisions to argue for limited compensation, including in cases such as the return of land to labor tenants and farm dwellers. The establishment of labor tenants and farm dwellers, making sure that through the establishment of the land valuer general, we utilize the current provisions in our constitution to begin to yield appropriate results, so that we do not speculate on this very emotive issue of land. We intend to introduce in this financial year regulation of agricultural land bill, which, if implemented in conjunction with the property Valuation Act of 2014 will give impetus to Section 25 on the principle of just and equitable compensation. The regulation on Agricultural Land Bill seeks to provide a framework and to introduce land ownership ceilings on agricultural land. We will continue to use the full potential of existing laws to fast-track rural development and land reform. By the way, rural development doesn't mean where black people live. It's called rural. Where people of other color live, it's where the real economy happens. It is provision of urban infrastructure in rural areas so that our people can also join Uhuru. Honorable Chairperson, the current unlawful land occupation that we have observed across the length and breadth of our country is a reflection of the frustration of our people with the pace of land reform. You know, when we were young, when there was a talk of unemployment, it was always about, when there's talk of, with apartheid, unemployment, it meant men. So when you talk of landlessness, you have not even started touching the landlessness of women. This is the time that women who make the majority of the population of this country and our youth, our future in this land, Labo Koko Bethu, becomes the fact that this will be the economic, the future of the economy of this country. They will be skilled, they will be skilled, they will use modern implements, and they'll go back and use their land, as we have borrowed this from our forebears and keep it in trust for our future. The fundamental question that we must continue asking ourselves is that how do we quicken our steps in opening up the economic gates, open them fully, make the citizens of this country, from whichever corner they stay or live, full participants of the economy of this country through land redistribution. To improve the efficiency in the land redistribution program, we commit to strengthen the capacity of the Commission of the Redistribution of Land Rights. This includes consideration of the suitable operating model, a redesign of claims process to reduce the unnecessary bureaucratic mechanism and to fast-track settlement of claims. Please, let's do away with speculation. It's not fun. Honorable members, to date we have settled 80,664 claims benefiting 2.1 million beneficiaries at the cost of 40 billion, inclusive of financial compensation to beneficiaries. 163,463 of this are female-headed households. To date, we have restored 3.5 million hectares of land, which can be used as a catalyst to change the lives of our people. In this financial year, we will pursue aggressively the strengthening of integrated development to ensure that land access yields broader economic spin-offs. The CPA continues to record profits. The CPA in the areas where it has been successful continue to record profits and has been exporting their produce, like the CPA that we had successfully undertaken in the Ravele area in Vembe. They continue to export their produce even to overseas countries like Europe, China, and other markets. Our challenge is to ensure sustainability of these successful examples of land restitution and to replicate it so that it becomes the norm and not an exception. Land redistribution program remains the key to provide access to land and to the previously disadvantaged persons. Since 1994, through the land redistribution program, we have acquired 4.8 million hectares of land at a cost of 17 billion. Of the 4.8 million hectares, 4 million is agricultural and 777,000 hectares of land was acquired and allocated to labor tenants and farm dwellers for tenure reform purposes. The department has recapitalized 1,675 farms equating to 1.5 hectares at the cost of 4.8 billion. During this current financial year, the department plans to acquire 98,100 hectares of land through proactive land acquisition strategy, financial partnerships, and Operation Pakisa initiatives. We have had many white-owned, land-owned farmers who have started coming to us to say, we are prepared to participate more into this, and they are more than welcome because this is our land. Finally, the department will pilot 18 farms to support the acceleration of land development and redistribution initiative in support of the peri-urban agriculture and revitalization of rural towns. The total budget of 1.2 billion is set aside for the acquisition of land to support these programs. The government issues in communal property association have been one of the key challenges affecting sustainability of land reform program. We have recently tabled the CPA amendment bill, and we hope progress in its enactment will be made in the current financial year. This bill provides for establishment of the Office of the Registrar, which will improve the capacity to monitor, train, deal with conflicts that may arise. It is shocking that in 2018, 24 years after we have achieved democracy, illegal evictions and human rights abuses on farms still persist. It has recently come to my attention that in some parts of our country, people still face the indignity of not being able to bury their loved ones on the land they have resided for most of their lives. This kind of incidents undermine the land rights culture that we are trying to instill. In this regard, we will focus on improving the security of farm dwellers through amendment of ESTA. In the State of the Nation address, the President instructed that an assessment should be done of all farms acquired through the land reform programs. Honorable Chairperson, I'm pleased to announce that we have already embarked on this exercise with regards to the land acquired through PLUS or proactive land acquisition strategy. To date, we have finalized the assessment of the Western Cape province. Work in all provinces is underway, and it is intended to be completed by November 2018. The result of this assessment will assist government in accelerating development support for economic transformation through identification of training requirements, socio-economic conditions, and infrastructure. The department completed the state land audit in 2012. Early this year, we have released phase 1 of the private land audit. Although there are many certain there may be certain limitations to the data that has been provided regarding race disaggregation. It provides a stark picture of inequality that still perpetuates in our ownership of land patterns. This report is very clear that as regards to individual landowners, Black South Africans still lag behind, far behind, and own only 4% of land. The next phase of the audit of private land will focus on disaggregating information as regards to ownership of land by companies, trusts, banks, CBOs, etc. This phase will commence in the current financial year, and we will work with other key stakeholders to access the necessary information which we believe will contribute to the modalities of land reform. However, as South Africans, we must accept that even without the finer details that will come forth in this phase of audit, since 1995, only 10% of the 82 million hectares of agricultural land has been redistributed. This means that we have not yet managed to redress the landlessness caused by apartheid. It means that we have not brought to fruition the covenant which Madiba spoke about, the covenant to build a society in which all South Africans, black and white, will be able to walk tall and assured of their inalienable right to human dignity. To contribute to improved land administration and economic transformation, the department initiated in 2014 the alignment of these registry areas of jurisdiction of provincial boundaries program. It is aimed at aligning the deeds registries areas of jurisdiction to provincial demarcations as articulated in Section 103 of the Constitution, and to ensure that each deeds registry services the province in which it is located, making it accessible to clients. Under this program, the department has already achieved significant milestones, amongst this being the establishment of the Limpopo Deeds Office in Polokwane on the 3rd of April, the separation of the transfer of all physical and electronic Eastern Cape records from Cape Town Deeds Registry. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, rural development remains key to economic transformation of the poor in rural areas. To this end, 5,448 jobs were created through rural development programs in the past year. Not temporary jobs, permanent. For 2018-2019, we will focus on bringing into operation in the 9 rural economic zones originally anchored on pursuit of agri-parks. Agri-parks should be clearly and distinctly be linked to integrated human settlements. They must not be in isolated pockets where people work somewhere and get transported somewhere else overnight, but where they work, play, and participate in the economic well-being of this country. The key aim of this initiative is to ensure that our people continue to be players, as I said, in the first economy. In my mother tongue, they say, "Tauja tloka seboka, tishitwa kinare itloja." We don't have any other way we can present this rather than to say South Africa has resolved very difficult political questions started by apartheid.
You have 2 minutes, Minister.
Yes. Because we had no foreign assistance or intervener to come and negotiate a political settlement on our behalf. We did it our own. We have an opportunity to do that again. I hereby present the budget with your support for 2018-2019. I thank you.
Re a leboga Me Ministera, isikhulumi sethu esiyochubekisa inkulumo mpikisano kuzoba umhlonishwa Magadla.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister and the Deputy Ministers, MEC Team Tembu from KZN, Honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Ngaphambi kokuba ndithi qap ngokwenzeka kwezemihlaba nophuhliso lwasemakhaya, mandikhumbuze uluntu ngokubaluleka kwalonyaka ka-2018. Okokuba sibhiyoza kwaye sikhumbula iintandane zethu zehlabathi ezingoba uRholihlahla, Nelson Mandela, Adalbunga, nomama Albertina Sisulu, malibongwe. Kwaye simbulela uThixo ngabo. The department draws its mandate from sections 24, 25, and 27 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which addresses 3 rights. That is the right to equitable land access, tenure that is legally secured or comparable redress, and rights to restitution. The ANC 54th National Conference noted that despite the economic advances of the past 23 years of freedom and democracy, the legacy of colonialism and apartheid is still deeply entrenched in our society and in the structure of the South African economy. This legacy expresses itself in racialized patterns of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, in land and spatial disparities, in infrastructure and service backlogs, which are more entrenched in rural areas. It therefore, amongst others, made the following resolutions on rural development and land reform: that we must pursue with greater determination the program of land reform and rural development as part of the program of radical socio-economic transformation. Expropriation of land without compensation should be among the key mechanisms available to government to give effect to land reform and redistribution. In determining the mechanisms of implementation, we must ensure that we do not undermine future investment in the economy or damage agricultural production and food security. Furthermore, our interventions must not cause harm to other sectors of the economy. The conference also reaffirmed ANC adoption in Mangaung of the National Development Plan as our guiding program for accelerated and radical socio-economic transformation in South Africa. These resolutions were reiterated by our President, His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, during the State of the Nation address in February 2018. He said that government would accelerate land redistribution program not only to redress historical injustice, but also to bring more producers into the agricultural sector and to make more land available. It will also pursue land expropriation without compensation, guided by the resolutions of this 54th National Conference of the ANC. However, this would be implemented in a way that increases agricultural production, improves food security, and ensures that the land is returned to those from whom it was taken under colonialism and apartheid. APP and budget of the department Chairperson, as reported in the committee, the programs of the department are aligned to ANC government priorities outlined in the NDP and 2018 State of the Nation Address. The programs also respond to the relevant Operation Pakistan initiatives, as the Minister has alluded, especially in acceleration of the settlement of land claims as well as redistribution of land. However, the major concern is whether there is appropriate capacity in the department to deliver on these priorities. It has been raised in the report and by many NGOs that the budget of the department does not talk to the agency to accelerate land reform, as it constitutes about 1% of the fiscus. It mentioned in the report that the continuous real terms decline of budget of the department could potentially affect service delivery amid growing calls for acceleration of the redistribution of land through expropriation of land without compensation. The decline in the budget for the department should be understood within the economic situation in the country. Due to insufficient economic growth, which implies constraint of funding for government, Cabinet has approved a budget cut of 725 million. All programs were affected by the cut, but rural development program with a nominal budget decrease of 4.8% in 2018 and 19 compared to 2017 and 18 is most notable. Despite these reductions, the department expects to ensure service delivery through reprioritization of funds from non-core programs to critical areas and intensify its implementation of cost containment measures on non-core services. With regard to personnel, it is of concern that there's a decrease in the number of employees for the department. This decrease has a potential to affect service delivery. Further, due to high staff turnover, over 58% of all top management positions of the department were occupied on an acting basis, which could affect decision-making on key service delivery issues. Such could further be compounded by the vacancy rate of 13.22% in the administration program. This is 3% higher than the acceptable 10% vacancy rate. It is on this basis that the committee has recommended that the department should ensure that all vacant positions in senior management level are filled by the end of the first quarter of 2018 and 19 financial year. Further, the department should engage the National Treasury on funds required to accelerate the process of land reform, in particular the finalization of land claims. Chairperson, in policies and legislation, it is good that the department is developing policies and pieces of legislation over the medium term in line with the directives of the ANC, such as the Regulation of Agricultural Land Holding Bill 2018, which seeks to place a ceiling on land ownership and prohibit land ownership by foreign nationals. However, there is still no overarching policy framework that creates linkages among various policies that have been created over the last 5 years. In addition, the silence of the department's APP on expropriation of land without compensation could be an indication of lack of policy, which needs to be addressed. Therefore, it is recommended in the committee report that the department should start a wide consultation process on national land and agrarian reform policy, whose outcome be a framework policy document. Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip, for the workshop that we were talking about. The policy document must ensure policy coherence and clarity coherence and guide the state in the implementation of land reform, including governance and administration. Further, the department working with the Office of the OVG, that is Valuer, Office of the Valuer General, must develop a policy position regarding expropriation of land in the public interest, taking into consideration the SONA pronouncement and around expropriation of land without compensation in a manner that does not harm the economy and food security, as the minister has alluded again. Chairperson, lastly, we have these entities, that is Commission on Restitution of Land Rights. The main finding by the committee is the failure to finalize the transition of the commission to being an autonomous entity reporting directly to the minister. This means that the commission continued to operate as Program 4 of the department, which is inconsistent with the legislative intentions under the Restitution of Land Rights Act number 22 of 1994. Secondly, Office of the Valuer General reported saving of the fiscus by regulating the valuations in a welcome development. In Gonyama Transport, there's been the delay in finalizing engagement between ITB, Auditor General, Department, and the National Treasury about the qualified audit opinion of ITB, as well as engagements regarding royalty revenue with the Department of Mineral Resources. If not addressed, this issue would continue to result in negative audit opinion. Chairperson, the ANC supports the budget vote 39, and thank you.
Siyabonga Mhlonishwa Magadla. The next speaker from the DA is Honorable Bambama. Order, honorable members.
On a point of order, Chairperson. Chairperson, I don't know if I heard correctly, but I heard the honorable member say, "Shut up, white boy." I would like him to withdraw. I think it is totally out of order.
Chairperson, I admit I did say shut up because he said shut up first.
Honorable
And
member.
I'll withdraw the white boy and I'll say shut up, white girl.
Honorable member. Honorable member. Honorable Paulson, please stand. Please stand. Honorable Paulson, you were heard, and I heard you saying, "Shut up, white boy." Please withdraw. Thank you.
Chairperson, he said he only withdraws shut up.
What is it, honorable member?
He withdrew with conditionally.
Can you please withdraw unconditionally, honorable Paulson?
I withdraw unconditionally.
Thank you very much. Continue, honorable member.
Madam Chairperson, Wandile Sihlobo, a leading agricultural economist, shared a map showing unused land suitable for agricultural production in Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, and Eastern Cape. The land is approximately 1.8 million hectares. In the Eastern Cape, the bulk of the opportunity lies in a single 250-kilometer band, which stretches from East London on the coast past Queenstown to the north. Included in this band of unused land are 88 farms lying fallow, belonging to the Gwatyu community. The unregistered Gwatyu Communal Property Association, representing the people of Gwatyu, came to Parliament in 2015, around this time, to appeal to the then Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform to register their community property association and process their application to take ownership of the land, which is registered in the state's name. Promises were made for the speedy resolution of their problems. The then minister even formed a special ministerial task team headed by the extremely dubious Mr. Dumisani Lupungela. Needless to say, As usual, the ANC government failed to deliver. Bakhala abantu baseGwatyi bezibuza uba senzeni na, senzeni na, senzeni na. Disillusioned, they turned to the
Honourable
Democratic
Chairperson.
Alliance, the Party
Honourable
for All
Chairperson.
People of South Africa,
Honourable Chairperson,
for assistance.
Honourable Chairperson,
Once again, the Gwatyi communal property.
Honourable Chairperson, we cannot be subjected to horrible singing in the House. It's not allowed. Honourable Chairperson, the DA is having posters in the House. The DA is carrying posters in the House. It's not allowed.
Order, honorable members, let me address something before I come to you. Only the person at the podium can show us pictures or something. Please, honorable members, we know the rules. Let's not do that. Thank you. Did you have anything to say, Honorable Paulse? Continue.
Chairperson, can we also be not subjected to horrible speeches from the benches there?
Honorable member, that's not a point of order.
Chairperson.
What you think is horrible might not be honorable to the speaker. Continue, Honorable Babama.
Chairperson,
Oh, okay. I asked you, I thought you had.
no, I didn't.
Okay.
Chairperson, when Sistandi stood up to speak, Umbulelo here,
Honorable members.
White friends told Sistandi to shut up. It's very ugly.
Honorable members.
No, it's ugly for a man to speak
Okay.
that way to a woman. He must
Okay.
withdraw.
Okay, honorable members. What happened?
Let's ask them if they did.
Yeah.
They did say shut up. If they did not, that's the end.
Honorable members, Honorable Paulse, your point of order is that when the honorable member was speaking, there was a shout of shut up. By who? By Honorable McPherson. Okay, Honorable McPherson, may I ask you if you did?
I did not.
Point of order, Chair.
Okay.
Point of order,
Honorable
Chair.
members, it's unfortunate.
I did not.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable member?
He looks very innocent.
Honorable members, can we allow the speaker on the podium to continue without this? Honorable McPherson,
No.
you have said that you, can you take your seat, please? Let me,
And Umbulelo there.
okay, let me address Honorable McPherson. That is the point of order. Honorable McPherson says he did not say it. It's unfortunate that your speakers are not on, and we don't have the Hansard to take what you said slowly. Can you please respect the House? We will investigate. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, with
Thank you.
respect,
Honor-
there's quite a big difference between myself and my colleague behind us for obvious reasons. So it would be strange.
honourable
it would be
members,
strange
I'm
that the
not
Honourable
going to
Paulson
enter into
cannot
that.
tell the difference between us.
Thank you. Please, let's respect the members that are here as guests.
Chairperson,
No, no, please.
I'd like to know what are the obvious reasons? The
Honorable
difference
Chief
between the two
Whips
of
of
them.
the GA and
What's
the
the obvious reason?
EFF,
No, what's the
please
obvious reason?
take your members outside to resolve the matter. We can't be held to ransom by the two members. What is it, Honorable Kaula? Can I hear you?
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Ukuthi nami ngiyabona benza kahle laba benza kanje. Ungethi sidebate into enzima yomhlaba owathathwa ngesikhathi enzima sobandlululo.
Honourable
Sishoti nangendawo zokungcwaba.
Thank you very much.
Azohlabelele emagama anjena.
Honor-
No, we are not playing here. We are coming to work. We
Honourable
want to know
member.
what happened about our land.
Honorable member, you are not in the speakers list. Can you allow the speakers to continue? I'm
Chair-
not going to take that point of order.
Chair, on Rule 92, we cannot allow the Speaker to continue with a poster which is not allowed in the House.
Which poster? Which poster?
There's nothing wrong about
Honorable members, I said only the speaker on the podium is allowed to do what she is doing. Let's continue. Those are the rules. Honorable Babama, your time is continuing. Let's continue.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, the Guatyu Communal Properties Association has come to Parliament in the hope that the new minister would heed the call for land. Pagamani bani bone bakhaya bam, Pagamani. How many similar landless communities are there in all the provinces that can be owners of land overnight? If only the department did its work. Ntate Rakhatsi in Limpopo has lived on his farm for 40 years. He was given a land redistribution for agricultural development grant, but when it came to registering the land in his name, the ANC government made him sign a 30-year lease instead. Why is the government reluctant to make people owners of the land? Instead of transferring ownership of the many hectares of land registered under the state, including the commonages administered by the municipalities, the department is slowly but surely nationalizing the land through its PLUS program, which buys land from willing sellers, registered it under the state, and then leases it out to beneficiaries. Why are people not allowed to have title to the land? Why must people rent the land? By supporting the EFF's motion to expropriate land without compensation, the ANC government has proven its allegiance. The people will never own the land outright, as the EFF's manifesto promotes the ownership of land by the state. Vuka mntomnyama. The ANC has again shown with its department budget that they don't care about land reform. Chair, please protect me.
On a point of order, House Chair.
Order, honorable
Chairperson.
members. Order.
Chairperson, on a point of
Order.
order.
Okay. What is the point of order, honorable member?
May you kindly protect our speaker, Chair, because they are drowning our speaker. Politics is hot. If you can't take the heat,
Honorable
we're not supposed
members.
to be here.
Honorable members, can we listen to the speaker on the podium, please? Thank you. Please continue, honorable member.
The ANC has again shown with its departmental budget that they don't care about land reform, spending more on VIPs at 2.9 billion than it does on land reform at 2.7 billion. We thus argue that it is the ANC government's inefficiency and not the Constitution that has failed to address this injustice. What we need is a change in government, not a change to Section 25 of the Constitution. It is high time that President Ramaphosa made a firm stand of land reform and finally confirm exactly what his government's position is. Just yesterday, Julius Malema, who seems to be leading the policy discussion
We have 1 minute left.
in the ANC, made a declaration that expropriation without compensation includes private land. The rural people of Guatyu, the people in the former TBVC states, are living under the people living under the Ingonyama Trust and the thousands living in shacks on the outskirts of the cities deserve better. The DA is committed to total change that delivers one South Africa for all. Enkosi.
Order. Honorable members.
Sorry, Slal.
Honorable members.
Honorable Slal.
Wait a minute, Ma'am Kaul. Honorable members. The chair who was here before me made a ruling in relation to the demonstration of the poster. You did it again. Can we warn you? Please stop it. Yes, I'm saying please stop doing that. Thank you. Honorable Makaula.
No, Slal, bese wacatha lapha phezulu siyababona i-members ze-DA ithola umhlaba i-happy zona. Abayeke ukushaya ihlombe lapha phezulu ngoba siwazi lo mhlaba bawutholile ukuthi ukuphi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makaula. Order, order, order. Can I ask also to our visitors in the galleries not to clap, not to whistle, not to take photos. If you fail to adhere to the orders, to the rules of the House after being warned, the Sergeant at Arms will have no option with my permission to take you out of the gallery. And I don't think you want to leave the gallery taken out. Can I have Honorable Matthias?
House Chair, thanks so much. We dedicate this speech to the victims of farm evictions from white-owned farms. We dedicate this speech to the people of Gwaju. And the people of Gwaju are not for sale, DA. That you must know. It is our firm belief that the legislative reform programs have hopelessly failed the indigenous people and dismally betrayed to restore the dignity and the humanity of the oppressed African masses of this land. Land expropriation without compensation cannot be vulgarized ANC style as just, I quote, one of the mechanisms to give effect to land reform. It is a mainstay of land reform and agrarian revolution, which represents what the struggle for liberation has always been about. The truth, no matter how inconvenient, Mama Magat, my dear mother, must be told, and we are here to tell the truth. How disappointing to see scenes where Africans quarrel and fight over acquiring piece of land for simple things such as residential purpose, near Protea in Johannesburg and elsewhere across the country. The ruling party seems to rejoice over black-on-black violence, quarrels, bickering, and squabbles on matters as simple as this one, because the government lacks the necessary political will to preemptively prevent such incidents of violence. Sithethelela laba bantu baqoshwe amafameni. Sithethelela laba bantu basebhizana. Mokga o busang o bonala o nyakalela diqhobeshano, dikgolakgolano le dikgoka tse etswang ke rantsho tseo e bang mmuso o lokela kore o di sireletse. We submit that the legislative arrangement and policies such as spatial land use management, amongst others, have failed to close the rural and urban divide. Spatial Land Use Management Act must bring about fundamental and radical transformation of public, private, and municipal land spatial framework for the modernization of the rural areas to end the divide between rural and urban South Africa as it was envisioned by the leader, the militant and most principled leader, Comrade Krizan. We reject the lame and petty moralizing excuses of the Office of the Valuer General about its failure to bring forth meaningful and responsive policy and regulations which will radically impact on the current segregative, racist land use realities in South Africa. Of the 2.7 billion allocated to land reform, 440 million is assigned to OVG over the medium term. The OVG must speedily get its act together in order to ensure efficient acquisition and equitable and just valuation of land. We demand the OVG to temper with apartheid land use and property valuation norms and standards and produce cogent alternatives. We demand radical change to the land and property valuation regime through which the colonial apartheid and race-based spatial land use will come to an end. Restitution of land has failed, and the Restitution Commission has failed in its mandate to research and investigate land claims and ensure successful land restitution to rightful claimants. The 2008 Concord judgment, 2016 rather, Concord judgment invalidating the Restitution of Land Rights Management Act is enough evidence to demonstrate that the Commission lacks capacity and it must be done away with. With a budget of 3.3 billion over the medium term, it has failed to meet its clear mandate. What is the use of keeping a commission in its current form and configuration With this arrangement, government will continue to fail to transfer land to rightful owners. Through its various policies, regulatory and institutional platforms, the department has disastrously failed to tamper with the triple fault lines of land dispossession due to feudal, apartheid colonial, and capitalist patterns of land ownership and forms, which are the base of discriminative and exploitative unsecure tenure system in this country. The role of the state in land revolution should be through legislative capacity to transfer land to the state, which will administer and use land for sustainable development purposes.
Honorable Matthias, your time is up.
We call upon the public to embrace the call by the EFF for the socialization of the ownership
Honorable
of land
Matthias.
in the era of capitalism. And it must happen. We declare war to the landowners.
Honorable Matthias.
The EFF objects this budget vote.
Now call upon Honorable Cebekun.
Honorable Chairperson, amongst the primary targets of this department is the management, monitor, restoration, restitution, and land of land amongst the previously dispossessed and marginalized rural people of South Africa, whilst ensuring sustainable rural livelihoods and fair employment in an environment of increasing social and economic advancement for all South Africans. The department has been working closely with Land Claims Commissioner to investigate and process all land claims lodged. It was also assisting in comprehensive agriculture program jointly with the Department of Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries, in its role being to assist with improvement of food security, acceleration of the settlement of land claims, and redistribution of land shall remain a key challenge for the department. This has given birth to a slogan, expropriation of land without compensation, which currently being the active voice, but being so actively voiced by many members of this parliament as well as the public. This issue, which is shortly before, to be before the Constitutional Review Committee in the third term is of this parliament, must be looked at very carefully. The IFP's position on this one is that the view of expropriation of land without compensation should never be the default position of government, but should rather, if employed at all, only be used in the most extraordinary, marginal, and unique circumstances as one of the possible baskets of options available to address land reform in South Africa once all other options have been exhausted. Programs by the department are failing miserably. Rural development was introduced with the hope of emancipating the rural communities in communally shared land as well as the farm dwellers. Yet, what is actually transpiring is in our communally shared land appears to be nothing but a mere lip service. Those who were fortunate enough to be assisted in agrarian and land tenure transformation program, the One Household, 1 Hectare initiative, are even without water to irrigate their vegetables. Additionally, such transformation was only provided to very few amongst our smallholder farmers who actually received assistance with very little as to taking place in communally shared land. Farms that were commercially productive and employing seasonal workers are now lying fallow. There are also reports employees on some of these farms that were leased to individuals in terms of agrarian transformation program being exploited and not receiving their wages at the end of the month. In conclusion, rural development is failing in this country. We still find large numbers of families, and individuals flocking into big towns and cities with the hope of finding employment, only to end up building temporary informal shelters, occupying open land municipalities have reserved for other developmental projects.
Honorable Kabikulo.
Chairperson. Oh. Ngiyisupporta kunjalo kodwa ngifisa ukugcizelela ukuthi akungathi kulenkinga eshiwo abahlonishwa la yendaba yomhlaba wengonyama bese bangathi khona umonakalo ongaka okhona. Asikufundeni ukuqonda ukuthi asingachithi ingane namanzi.
Hlonishwa Kabikulo.
Ngiyathokoza kakhulu.
Honorable Sheikh, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Once again, I saw the highest level of hypocrisy. Yesterday, the audience were gagged. Today, they're asking the audience to applaud them. But let me start off with the minister in the House. Minister, I think it's time now for action. We've been talking and talking and talking. Enough talk. Let's get to the real challenges that we face in South Africa today. Honorable Chairperson, the issue of land expropriation without compensation must be addressed without any further delay. The NFP is of the opinion that government must intervene now here today, whether it is through amendments, motions to put a moratorium on the sale of all state-owned land, which is clearly being abused, particularly by the DA in the Western Cape. Let me also remind all my colleagues, including all South Africans, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget how you were dehumanized. Don't forget how you were forcefully removed. Don't easily forget the past and what your families and forefathers have gone through. Government has either turned a blind eye or ignorant of the fact that while we deliberate on the important aspect of land occupation in South Africa, my oppressive colleague on the left, who are clearly benefiting and must be receiving substantial kickbacks and donations to promote their political ideology of a divide and rule, power and control, selling off state land, misleading the people in the Western Cape into believing it for the poorest of the poor. Honorable Chairperson, ask them about the links between the developers in the Western Cape.
Honorable Imam.
The developers in the Western Cape,
Honorable
the
Imam.
land that they're selling to, and the relationship with Israel.
Honorable Imam, please.
Will the honorable member take a question?
We want to know if you'll take
No
a
time
question.
for
Let's want
questions.
to find
There's no
out about
questions to be
ANC
here.
membership.
Let me reiterate again. Ask them about their relationship between the developers in the Western Cape and the government of Israel and the kickbacks that they are getting. Ask them, they tell you about that. Honorable Chairperson, the National Freedom Party is saying very clearly, stop all evictions immediately. That's the first thing. Ensure there's beneficiation for all farm workers. Put a moratorium on the sale of all state-owned land. Whilst government is dealing with the issue of land, these racist oppressors are going ahead and selling the land in the Western Cape, day in and day out.
Honorable Imam. Honorable Imam. Honorable
Speaker,
Sheikh Imam, please.
Honorable Speaker, as a fellow member.
Order, honorable members. I can't hear. Order, honorable members. I can't hear what the member is saying.
Honorable Chairperson, as a fellow member of this House, I feel very aggrieved for Honorable Sheikh Imam. He
On
looks
what
like
point
he's
are you
about
talking-
to
on what
faint.
point are you standing
He's
on?
working so hard for the ANC to give him a
On
job.
what
He's
point,
going to
honorable?
faint there. The ANC
Honorable
has given him
Van
a
Dam,
job.
please take your
His
seat.
own party That's rejects right. him. What's happening?
Honorable Van Dam,
He's going to faint there.
please take your seat.
Begging you must hire him.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, please continue.
Honorable Chairperson, it's only a matter of time. It was Patricia Deal, it's Musi Maimane, it's Lindiwe Maziboko, and then it will be Van Dam. She'll be damned to the damned. Let me tell you, Sam. Now, Let me tell you people here,
House Chair.
75% of individuals are blacks.
On a point of
Only
order.
1.2% of the land is owned by
Honorable
blacks
Imam.
in South Africa. And we're saying it's business as usual.
Honorable Imam, please hold on. Oh, yes, Honorable.
Chairperson, with due respect, the honorable member there, he's making noise. We can't
On
hear
what
him.
point are you standing?
He's making noise. We can't hear. Can
Okay,
you
please
lower
take
the
your
volume?
seat, Honorable.
Let me reiterate,
Honorable Imam.
Chairperson.
For his supper.
Chairperson,
Honorable member.
Chairperson, I'm feeling threatened by the hands waving here next to my head. Please, can you look after my safety in this house?
Please take your seat.
Honorable Chairperson, let me reiterate. Those that are in possession of stolen land, they knew they were buying stolen land. In fact, they are criminals. They must return the land and return it immediately. They have no right to be in possession of land that they have actually stolen. So we must either charge them criminally or ensure that they return the land to its rightful owners. All these people on the left are occupying land that belongs to the Khoi and the San that they have stolen from those people. And they must return the land to those rightful owners. Honorable Chairperson, let me also add, the life of the farm workers, specifically in the Western Cape, are shocking. We must stop.
Honorable Imam, please. Honorable Filtani. Order. Honorable member. Honorable members, you're not supposed to use your mics when you're calling for order or when you are interjecting. Please, can we refrain from doing that? Honorable Filtani.
Thank you, Chair. I challenge the Speaker to correct his statement. He says all these people on the left, and I'm on the left. He must withdraw that now.
Thank you, Honorable Filtani. Honorable Imam. Honorable Imam, those honorable members sitting there are taking offense.
I think he's correct. It's on the left here. In this area. He's correct. Maybe he's not. Thank you very much. Maybe he's not from the oppressive organization. Yeah. Now let me also add, Honorable Chairperson, farm workers in South Africa, especially in the Western Cape, are tortured, harassed, and intimidated on a daily basis. They are evicted by these merciless farm owners. And I think as government we need to deal with this issue. And I think we need to deal. We also need to listen, when they stole the land, they also stole our water. They've stolen our dam. We need to deal with it because most of the dams of the 5,500 are in the hands of these white farmers. And we need to deal with it. Remember the Water Act that they brought in 1956. What was it? To benefit a few of their people. And that is exactly what they are doing. Let me also add, Honorable Chairperson, we need a fund to be created because through their farms, people are suffering with alcohol fetal syndrome. And we must compensate
Point of order. House Chair.
Honorable Imam, wait a minute. Honorable member.
Chairperson, I just want to bring something to your attention. The
On
honourable
what
member
point,
is,
honourable
is
member?
misleading the House because he said we as government need to address something. I'm not sure if this is an admission that he has joined the ANC now.
House Chair, thank you very much, Ngiyabonga. House Chair, will the honourable member take a question as to how you steal rainwater?
Order, honourable members.
Rainwater.
Order, honourable
in your
members.
dam.
Yes, honourable member.
Chairperson, it's actually a very serious question raised by the Honourable McPherson because it does affect the allocation of speaking times. If there's an extra member
You
of the ANC
interject
speaking-
him, the more we stop the clock,
have a
and the
ruling.
more he has more time. The more you interject, is the more the time is prolonged, but we stop the clock
give him a job
as soon as
already.
there is an interjection. Honourable Imam.
Honourable
please
Chairperson,
conclude.
I'm not sure what DA government they're talking about because the DA government is in crisis at the moment. They couldn't even manage the water crisis here. They can't manage the city of Cape Town. They've underspent the capital budget by 40%. Fraud, corruption, and malay is an order of the day. Every day they are corrupt. Now tell me, what government are they talking about? I cannot understand. Honourable Chairperson, as the National Freedom
Honourable
Party,
Imam,
we want to make it very, very
your
clear.
time is up.
We support the vote tabled here today. Thank you very much.
Political hobbits.
Order. Order. Tawubita liphini likangqongqoshe, mhlonishwa Squash.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, Nkwana Mashabane and all ministers present here, Deputy Minister Mashako Dlamini and all DMs, members of Parliament, MEC Mthembu, Deputy Mayor of Bito, Baukapai, ladies and gentlemen, mandini bulise ngalentsasa. Let me also join my colleagues and say I'm pleased to be amongst those debating here today on such an important issue of land reform. As a country, we have just emerged from the April month, which was a period to celebrate the birth of our democratic dispensation. As part of those celebrations, we can never forget that on the 10th of May, 1994, Madiba proudly walked into the Union buildings and became the head of state after more than 300 years of colonialism and apartheid. I think there's also sufficient consensus amongst all of us that the April month has been a very difficult, painful month to all of us. We have lost distinguished members of this society. At a local level, Chairperson, in April, I was part of those who were present when the late comrade and friend of mine, Reverend Mtini's remains were entombed at the Maitland Cemetery. I dedicate this input today to him in his honor. This year, we celebrate the centenary of two icons, Umama uNontsikelelo Sisulu, noBaba uRholihlahla. It is fitting to go back to that founding document for some inspiration. I wish to quote the preamble of our Constitution when it says, I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this supreme law of the Republic so as to heal the divisions of the past," close quotes. I invoke this declaration, Chairperson, to reach out to every South African, all parties represented in this House, that the time is now for us to rise above our party political interest and embrace the parliamentary process underway, because it is largely to heal the divisions of the past. It is a known fact that the indigenous people of this country were dispossessed of their land through brutal force. Their livestock forcefully captured, and they were made slaves and beggars in their own land. This original sin was consolidated with the formation of the Union of South Africa in 1910 and ultimately the passing of the 1913 Land Act. Honorable Chair, Baba Madiba, on the adoption of the Constitution, had this to say, I quote him, "We strike out along a new road in which the preoccupation of elected reps at all levels of government will be how to cooperate in the service of the people, rather than competing for power which otherwise belong to the people," close quotes. It is our submission as the ruling party that now it is another opportunity for us to walk side by side along this new road of exploring peaceful means of addressing the land question. We will do this in the service of our people as guided by that particular icon, Fellow South Africans, it is with this understanding that we appeal to our people to desist from illegal invasions of properties and land. Illegal invasions can be successful in the meantime, but they are very short-lived. Let me now turn my attention to our programs in the land reform space, whose focus is intended to address a rapid and fundamental change in the revelations, systems, and patterns of ownership and control of the land, livestock, cropping, and community. We call this agrarian transformation. At the end of the day, we want to see the positive impact of these programs being felt at household level. These programs must improve food security, reduce the number of people who are vulnerable to hunger, reduce unemployment, poverty, and inequality. On land acquisition and redistribution, progress on the redistribution of agricultural land in the previous financial year is as follows. Department acquired 155,786 hectares of land from the 3 programs of land reform. A total of 53,368 hectares was allocated to smallholder farmers, and a total of 16,294 hectares was allocated to farm dwellers and labor tenants. This achievement benefited 1,353 individuals from the program redistribution. 336 of them are women, 259 are youth, and 11 are military veterans. They form part of the special category for land allocation among the target group. The department intends to acquire 98,100 hectares during the financial year 2018-2019, and 40,500 hectares of the targeted land will be allocated to support smallholder farmers. A total of 8,100 hectares will be acquired under financial partnerships for accelerated land redistribution emanating from the Operation Pakisa initiative, and 9,100 hectares will be acquired and allocated to labor tenants and farm dwellers. The total budget allocation for land redistribution is 1.2 billion to achieve these targets. Land acquired through redistribution supports smallholder farmers, farm dwellers, and labor tenants, and military veterans. On strategic land reform, just before I go to that one, Chair, the issue we're addressing today is a very, very emotive one, and we cannot solve it with anger. When I noticed how the EFF was talking here, they speak, they speak about the Valuer General. Why do you need the Valuer General if you want to expropriate land without compensation? Because unless you don't know the role of the Valuer General. And let me spend this last 1 minute to say that the people of Gwatyu, really there's a challenge here. There are challenges that we openly want to admit to. But don't make a mistake, if people of Gwatyu are not members of the DA. These are South Africans concerned, and their problems are going to be solved by this ruling party. We are going there. Now, Umamum Papama, when Mamum Papama started singing Senzenina, I just remembered Mzwake Mbuli's song that says, Ukulimala ngqondo, ukulimala komuntu. Now, how can a person whose land was forcibly taken from her speak like that? What we need in South Africa, what we need in South Africa, we do not need others owning more than others. The ruling party is saying, let there be equality. We want to take back what belongs to us.
Honorable Minister.
And I can assure you, the problem of Gwatyu is going to be solved by this government. Siyaya phaya. Siyeza abantu bakuthi, siyeza apho kuni. We'll solve the problem. Thank you.
Bitelonga la lihloniphekile Filtani.
We won't be talking about Guachu.
Filtani, I recognized you some time ago. Speak. Please speak.
Thank you. Okay. The preamble of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa states, we, believing that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Question is, which part of South Africa actually belongs to the landless? They look around, they can't find any piece of South Africa that actually belongs to them. Honorable Minister, please respond to this question by providing radical action to help them get their land. Honorable Minister, stop for a second and listen, and you will hear the millions of the landless South African citizens. They are crying out for land. Help them get what is in reality and constitutionally theirs, land. They want to belong to South Africa. They want to own South Africa. They want their acre of our beloved country. To them, this budget means nothing. Nothing because it talks about development programs on land, yet they own no land. An example of skewed land ownership patterns, as reflected in the recently released departmental report, is that in the Eastern Cape, 3 million hectares is in white hands, and only 253,000 hectares are owned by blacks. So desperate are their circumstances, the landless. So dire is their situation that 11 million of them are likely to go to bed tonight without a meal. They need land on which to build family homes, from which to produce food for their families, from which to conduct business, on which their children will play, on which their budding sportsmen and women can develop their talents. The people of Bazia and Highbury and Umtata are painfully waiting for the finalization of their land claims. Please, Minister, we need action and we need it now. Go find 30 billion rands to finalize the 1998 land claims. They need land which they can hold and hoard for future generations, on which they can keep their livestock and milk their cows and feed their children nutritionally. Minister, Africans will not ask for even one more penny from you in order to do the above for themselves. I have personally experienced that lifestyle in Transkei as I grew up. The much spoken about radical economic transformation needs radical legislation. The bills that are with us in Parliament go nowhere near achieving that. Just over a year, I questioned the then Minister of Rural Development about this weak Esther bill, and his response was that that can only be done with a new bill. Will you look into that, Honorable Minister? Farm workers continue to be evicted without getting much effective protection from government. Municipalities need land to resettle these evictees. 3 weeks ago, the UDM finally cleared the myth that Isilo owns Ngonyama Trust land. I took the committee through this act clause by clause. The Ngonyama Trust Board Chairperson, Judge Ngwenya, did not rebut my statement. So your department can now go out and develop parts of that land, of that 2.9 million hectare land. We have yet to see, as a committee, a departmental report that shows that as little as just 1,000 people supported by our department are earning a mere 1,000 rands each per month on the throat. In the absence of such a report, this department does not qualify to be part of the economic cluster. It should be moved to the social cluster. There's no economic development that's visible.
Your time is up.
Is it up? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. This budget is supported by us, menial as it is. It only shows that the ANC is less committed to land reform. Thank you.
Barrel Groenewald.
Minister. Agbare voorsitter, I want to start to say to the people of South Africa they must take note of what the Honourable Minister said this morning. She said and she justified the unlawful occupation of land because she said that is proof for the frustrations of the people. That is in contradiction with the Honourable President who said it is not allowed. You did not say that it is not acceptable. So by that, you actually confirm and justify that. The Honourable Minister also refers to the prices of land and says it is inflated and distorted. Now let me tell the Honourable Minister why. Your predecessor admitted that in 93% of cases, the beneficiaries didn't want the land. They want the money. Now, what happens in practice? The government buys the land. Let's say it's 5 million rand. But because the people don't want the land, they want money, the government have to take another 5 million to pay the beneficiaries. And therefore, the prices are distorted because for the same piece of land, for land reform, you now took the taxpayers' money and paid 10 million. That's the distorted matter as far as prices are concerned. Voorsitter, die ANC-regering mislei die mense van Suid-Afrika om te sê dat onteiening sonder vergoeding is noodsaaklik om grondhervorming te bespoedig. Wat is die werklike feite? In die eerste plek wil ek vir die agbare minister sê, die staat sit tans met 4000 plase wat hulle besit. En die vraag is, hoekom gee u nie daardie 4000 plase vir die mense nie? As u dan sê u wil dit bespoedig, doen dit. U departement sit nou al sedert die sluiting van eise van 1998, waar daar 80.000 eise vir restituisie was, het u nog steeds nie afgehandel nie. Die staat, en dit is 'n amptelike vraag aan die minister bevestig, besit 17 miljoen hektaar grond in Suid-Afrika. Ek vra vir die agbare minister, hoekom gee u nie daardie grond wat die staat ook besit, buiten die 4000 plase? Hoekom gee u dit nie vir die mense? U moet nie u kop skud nie, dan het u voorganger vir die parlement gelieg, want hy het dit gesê in 'n amptelike vraag in die parlement. So u misbruik die gevoelens, u misbruik die gevoelens van die mense om u eie onbevoegdheid as 'n rookskerm te gebruik om dit te verbloem. En daarom sê die Vryheidsfront Plus vir u reguit. U mislei die mense om te sê dat onteiening sonder vergoeding gaan grondhervorming bespoedig. Ek wil ook vir u sê dat as ons gaan kyk na die projekte, het die voorganger ook erken dat 90% van die herverdelingsprogramme het misluk. Die vraag aan die regering is, hoekom verdeel u nie weer daardie plase wat u gekry het om grondhervorming te bespoedig nie? Ek wil u laaste aspek vir u vra. You said, Honourable Minister, that we don't need to change the constitution to ensure expropriation without compensation. So why do you continue with the whole process of changing the constitution? Stop it if you are so sure about your case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Groenewald. Honourable Carter.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me be blunt. The Constitution is no impediment to land reform. Let me repeat it. The Constitution is no impediment to land reform. In fact, Section 25 of the Constitution provides a mandate for transformation, for restitution, for redistribution, for equality, for security of tenure, for access to land. All of that in Section 25 of our Constitution. Chair, it even provides for the expropriation of land, but on the proviso that it is not arbitrary or subjective or vindictive, but rather that it is undertaken in terms of a legal framework and for public purpose or in the public's interest, and subject to compensation, that it is just and equitable. Now, Chairperson, the Congress of the People reiterates its position, and we are convinced that history will prove us right. We are firmly of the view that the current provision of Section 25 of the Constitution provide the vision and the foundation to heal the divisions of our past and to establish a society based on social justice and fundamental human rights in respect of land. And we will continue to defend the Constitution, promote land reform and equality, to restore lost dignity through land reform, and to protect the rights of a present generation of title holders as provided for in the Constitution. Now, Chairperson, I have here in my hand a copy of the ANC's 1992 Ready to Govern policy as adopted at its National Congress in, and I'm going to quote from it, "It will be unjust to place the whole burden of the cost of transformation on the shoulders either of the present generation of title holders or on the new generation of owners." Now, the state therefore must shoulder the burden of compensation expropriated title holders where necessary and subject to the provisions of a Bill of Rights, close quote. Now, Chair, it is beyond doubt that it is the ANC that is
Honourable
deviating from its values and
Honourable
principles.
Carter, let me take.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Minister.
I wanted to know if it is in order for Member Likota to still keep ANC documents and pass them to her.
As long as,
Carter,
as long as it's not going to take my time, I'll answer that.
Please continue.
Thank you. Chair, it is beyond doubt that it is the ANC that is deviating from its values and its principles. And COPE is that the genesis underpinning this sudden change is to be found in the factional battle that continues to threaten to split the ruling party. A battle in which issues such as expropriation of land without
Have 1 minute.
compensation and the nationalization of a reserve bank and white monopoly capital narrative were and are being used as proxies between two warring factions. Now, Chair, the high-level panel report is clear that compensation for land has not been the main obstacle to land reform, and that it is the government that is failing as a consequence of rampant corruption, the capture of land reform budgets and projects by political elite, incapabilities of the current administration, insufficient budgetary provision for land reform, which in real terms has decreased over the past 20 years, which points to a lack of political will, a movement towards making land reform beneficiary tenants. And I want to repeat that, a movement towards making land reform beneficiary tenants instead of empowering them and ensuring their sustainability. An unwillingness to resolve land tenure in tribal areas for narrow political ends. Where is the backbone?
Honourable Carter.
Little or no attempts to implement or
Honourable
test
Carter,
government's
your time is up.
expropriation powers as currently provided for in Section 25. The Congress of the People cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Carter. Lungalishona Pegile Nchabele.
Thanks, Madam House Chair. I was listening to the honorable member was speaking Carter, and I understood why we say once a pirate, always a pirate. She's still stuck in the ANC, and yeah, and you know, yesterday I was watching ENCA news bulletin, and there was this an article about the celebration of victory by the Russian army over Nazism. And I was watching it with a young person from Pretoria Tumi Mokgoto. And he said, he remarked, oh, Brian, like, you know, this thing reminds me, my grandfather was killed when he was only 28. And my mother was 2 years old. So all of us don't know who my grandfather is, including my mother, who has never seen his father. And his grandfather is Comrade Modikwane Ratsoma from Skukuniland. He was known as Poko Ratsoma, Poko David Molefe. He was part of a group of young South African volunteers who joined Umkhonto Wesizwe in the 60s. Their quest was to liberate their country. And when he was after training, the ANC had a relationship with the Zimbabwe People's Union. And they had a joint operation with Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army. The quest was to liberate both these countries. And I had an opportunity in life to talk to some of the surviving commanders of this Lutuli detachment, and amongst them was Comrade General Bra Ike Mapoto, and Tatem Zimela from KwaZulu-Natal, and Gizenga Mpanza. They talked about young men who were gallant fighters and revolutionaries who fought to the last drop of their blood in Zimbabwe. They were fighting so that their people can regain dignity as full citizens of their respective countries, and specifically restoration of their people's rights to land and participation in the development of their economy. That actually brought memories where I remember one interview that was done. There was an interview by the BBC where they were interviewing Joshua Nkomo, and he was asked a question that time, what kind of system are they going to bring in Zimbabwe? And he had this to say, and I quote, "This war is about land, and private ownership of land is foreign ideology," close quote. In dealing with land reform in this country, we need to draw lessons from our neighbors, particularly Zimbabwe. Their best practices as well as not to repeat the mistakes that they made in the past. We also need to draw lessons from our allies in the BRICS. We could learn from the Brazilian constitution in how it deals with expropriation of land. It has an interesting concept of the social function of land. The social function requires land to be adequately used in a way that preserves the environment, respect labor laws, and benefits both the owners and laborers. We should sit down together as South African and address what the social function of land should be in our country. It should include addressing past injustices, allowing space for our religious and cultural practices, and agreeing on how land should be used for the benefit of all who live on it. We must embrace the constitutional review process as a plot that could assist us move forward to address the land injustices. Where land is not performing a social function, the Constitution of Brazil gives the state powers to expropriate land in favor of the landless people who will use it to achieve its social function. Madam Chair, we need to use state power to enforce laws that will protect our people from racist landowners. Let me remind you all that the state is an instrument of cohesion, a mechanism of force. We can talk about this outside the sitting. It is on this basis that constitutional review and amendment is necessary in as far as it removes any ambiguity about expropriation of property and the purpose of expropriation, particularly in the public interest. It is important also to ensure that the review and amendment are to clarify beyond any ambiguity what some experts says the Constitution in its current form allows for expropriation without compensation. Therefore, the amendments must help to clarify such position. The colonial and apartheid violent dispossession, forced removals, and influx control robbed our people not only from their land, it also robbed them of their dignity and plunged them into stinking poverty for hundreds of years. Returning the land to its rightful owners is critically important in our efforts to build a truly non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. Madam Chair, it is possible to expropriate land in a manner that will bring about more people into the agricultural industry. To our minister, I would like to our brand new minister, I'd like to invoke the echo of the Red Army in their war against Nazism, when they said every boat should go to the front to liberate humankind of Nazism and all forms of racism. And their battle cry was, Tolka, period, Nasat, Nyet, which means forward ever, backward never. Aribuele morago, minister, and Rokopelo Noskabuela morago, we are behind you. We will defend you all the way until the last piece of land is given to those who deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nchabeleng. Lunga Hloniphekile Datley.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank the table staff for ensuring that they've taken away the discrimination against tall people here at this podium. The ACDP reflects with dismay, however, and concern on a budget that, instead of being increased in line with the obvious urgency of the land question, the land budget, which declined over the past few years, is now at a level that it was in 2008. Honorable Minister, we really do feel your pain at this stage. In speaking to the national budget for 2018-19, Minister Gigaba said the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform will accelerate the settling of restitution claims. Now, we acknowledge the progress of restitution of land has been very slow up till now, with most rural claims not resolved and poor implementation and inadequate support for resolved ones. The limiting of restitution support, limiting of the restitution to dispossession after the 19th of June 1913 has also discriminated against Khoisan people, causing much uneasiness. What we know is that at the end of apartheid, about 80 million hectares of commercial farms were owned by 60,000 families, and 13 million black people were crowded into homelands. The new government promised people access to land on an equitable basis with legally secure tenure, and the expectation was created that 30% of white-owned land would be redistributed within 5 years. By 2014, only 8% of agricultural land had been redistributed, although the Constitution allows for compensation that is just and equitable. Government chose to redistribute land at market value on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. Interestingly, access to land on an equitable basis has not, as far as I know, in more than 20 years been interpreted judicially. I know personally what an uphill battle it was for me when I tried to convince an ACDP Congress that supporting market value as opposed to an equitable basis, as expressed in the Constitution, would actually increase the risk of the demand for far more drastic measures down the line. The ACDP understands, however, that for socio-economic justice to be a reality, land redistribution is necessary and expropriation is inevitable, but expropriation of land without fair compensation cannot be condoned. We also take seriously what the Minister of Housing said yesterday, that the failure or success of our human settlements expansion program depends on accessing and releasing optimally located land. Houses can only be built on land which is suitable and well located. People need roofs over their families' heads, and land is needed for this purpose. Title deeds must, however, unconditionally be in the hands of the people of South Africa and not the state or other powerful entities. The ACDP calls on government to champion a pragmatic land redistribution drive guided by the principles of equity and justice. The Zimbabwean example having been shown to be socially and economically hazardous, even if politically appealing, in the short term is not an option. Expropriation of land without compensation has historically destabilized economies and destroyed the hopes and dreams that freedom promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Duckley from the ACDP. We now call Honorable Robertson from the DA.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Minister, we're speaking about the skewed patterns of land ownership, but yet phase 2 of the land audit hasn't even come to the portfolio committee yet. It's been handed out far and wide throughout South Africa, but the very people who have got the knowledge to be able to discuss this issue have not even had it given to them in the portfolio committee. Where's the department heading if we cut the budget meant to cap I beg your pardon, to upskill the youth in our rural areas? Budget cuts will limit the department's ability to implement policy and strategies. The department's budget cut of 4.8% from 1.9 billion to 1.8 billion from the rural development and reducing the budget by nearly 100 million over the mid-term period will mostly affect the skills development programs like NARISEC. It ultimately means that 1,515 students will not be receiving the necessary skills in agriculture, motor mechanics, water and sanitation, and electrical engineering, all very important trades to have while navigating one's through the quagmire of abject poverty in rural areas. The department, which currently has no Director General and 7 of the top positions are yet to be filled, will not be able to perform in its functions as mandated to do so. It will not be able to skill the very people who so desperately depend on land reform, and the beneficiaries, these are the beneficiaries and emerging farmers and commercial farmers. The ANC's Department of Rural Development and Land Reform are nowhere near achieving the real progressive move towards the alleviation of poverty through rural development. The ANC has failed in land reform, in land redistribution, and in land tenure. The high-level panel, headed by ex-President Kgalema Motlanthe, has indicated the reasons why land reform is not performing, and the panel has indicated that Section 25 of the Constitution is not the impediment to effective service delivery. According to its findings, the ANC lacks the political will to address the inequalities in land. They lack departmental capacity, which directly affects verification of claimants and creates a lack of policy implementation, which ultimately means a 461 million rand budget will be used on consultancy fees alone. The shocking truth about the poor capacity is that 55% of those consultancy fees will be spent on consultation of administration staff. This figure towering over the mere 27% left for rural for restitution. They found massive corruption by department officials involved with land deals and post-settlement support. Lastly, the prioritization of claims with excessive land deals, such as the infamous Mala Mala land deal, costing taxpayers 1.1 billion rand, was deemed both excessive and invalid by the courts and the Commission alike. Had the prioritization of claims been handled justly and fairly, money spent on Mala Mala could have been
1 minute.
Money spent on Mala Mala could have been given between between 60,000 and 100,000 South Africans one step closer to the ownership of land and title deeds. The DA will expedite the verification of claims through increased budgets so that each provincial commission would be armed with private sector researchers that could consist of professors of local area history as well as anthropologists that could diligently assist with the verification of processes. Through disciplined and transparent financial management, The DA would ensure that wasteful and unauthorized expenditure by various departments could benefit the poorest of the poor and ensure that we alleviate the stresses of landlessness and the lack of ownership. We recognize the necessity to transform state apathy towards black emergence into effective, productive implementation of Section 25 of the Constitution. The DA is the only
Thank you,
party that will
Honourable
lead the way into
Robertson.
the successes of land reform. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Robertson. We now call on the Deputy Minister for Rural Development, Honorable Mashego Damini, to take the debate forward.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My greetings to the Minister, all members who are here, our officials, our esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is great honor and privilege to be given this opportunity to present our budget and policy speech to this August House on this month of the evolution of our country's democracy. It was during this month, May 1994, when our first democratic elected President, Nelson Mandela, was inaugurated. In his State of the Nation address, the Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa said, and I quote, "In accelerating the centenary of Nelson Mandela, we are not merely honoring the past, we are building the future. We are continuing the long walk he began to build a society in which all may be free, in which all may be equal before the law, and in which all may share in the wealth of our land and have better life," close quote. The National Development Plan provides a long-term vision for accelerating development so that food security can increase, unemployment and inequality be reduced, creating a more inclusive society. This will achieve through diligent implementation of our APP. Honorable members, I would like you to work with me as I present the achievement of the 2017-18 financial year and furthermore, indicate the priorities for this financial year. Chairperson, the department is facilitating integrated spatial planning in rural areas to ensure that there is alignment between sector departments, parastatals, private sector, and municipal development agenda in order to achieve sustainable development. To date, the department has facilitated the compilation of 43 district-level rural development plans with the participation of all provincial stakeholders and overall ownership by district. In this financial year, the department will finalize a rural development policy framework, which will lead to the development of a rural development bill. This bill is intended to fulfill the objectives of Operation Pakisa on agriculture, land reform, rural development, which is to strengthen coordination amongst role players involved in rural development. The bill will also provide for the establishment of a rural development agency. Honorable Chairperson, as indicated by our minister here, the department will be taking the wide rural economic development forecast through the implementation of the Rural Economic Development Zone. This will act as a catalyst integrated rural economic transformation. The current agri-park being developed by the department will continue being amongst the key deliverables within the Rural Economic Development Zone. Through household profiling, communities will be actively mobilized to participate in planning, identification, and prioritization of development initiatives. Chairperson, as you continue to work with me on this road, I am proud to announce that progress has been made to date. As we all know that the Agri-Park program seeks to improve production by smallholder farmers, improve access to markets, and help emerging farmers to participate in the agricultural value chain. During the last financial year, the department has deepened its support to farmers by providing them with the necessary equipment to help them till the land. In this regard, we delivered state-of-the-art tractors with full sets of implements across the country. In the Eastern Cape, for example, we delivered 61 tractors with full set of implement at the cost of approximately 145 million. Listen, this is Agri-Park in action. Madam Chairperson, primary production is one key element of the value chain that we want to pursue with the Agri-Park program. In this regard, the Farmer Production Support Unit are being operationalized as one-stop center to support rural communities in the enterprise, producers participation in the one household, 1 hectare, and the one household, 2 dairy cow initiative. This support includes a provision of mechanization, equipment, management, skills development, mentoring, as well as production inputs such as fertilizers, seeds, seedling from their own nurseries. The department, in close collaboration with variant of commodities associations and research institutions, is fully in pursuit of the process in which communities are engaged across commodity value chain and their commercial market. With the Agricultural Research Council, we supported 628 households in the training, production, packaging, and marketing of cotton. With the National Wool Grower Association, we have supported 3,000 wool producers, farmers, in about 1,440 villages. These are the people that are shedding their sheep at a cost of 313 million and they are exporting internationally their wool. With the Mtuga Chani Heifer organization in KwaZulu-Natal, the provincial government of Agriculture and Rural Development, we have supported 1,500 households in improving goat production and marketing. With the National Agricultural Marketing Council, we have supported 700 rural livestock producers in quality red meat production through their value chain. This support includes, amongst others, the construction and equipping of customary feedlots in the villages to supply quality meat to our agri-hub for the processing and marketing. In the last financial year, we delivered 47 infrastructure projects to support the Agri-Park program, 149 infrastructure programs to support primary producers, and 45 social infrastructure projects linked to revitalize the rural towns and villages. Through these few examples we have mentioned above, we are demonstrating our continued support to rural primary producers with the ultimate aim to getting them ready to support the fully participation in the commodity value chain through the Agri-Park program. When this is in full swing, the nation will begin to see the dialectic gap between the first and the second economy narrowing. Ongoing support will be provided to the Rural Women Control Mzansi Arts and Craft Cooperative Financial Institution. To date, ladies and gentlemen, we have launched 7 branches of this bank. The day of dependency on exploitative commercial loan from Bomashonisa and the monopoly of handful and commercial banks are numbered. In this financial year, the department is aiming to organize and establish 3 new cooperatives. One of it is on wool growers with Wool Growers Association. We have also educated 38 young people in cooperative management which have got their diplomas now in April. They will be deployed throughout the province. We have got young people that have been supported on IT school program, and they are here in front of us today. They are now in the system. They are using computers. They are using iPad in their classroom activities. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to announce that there is a gentleman here who undergone our program of NARISEC. He is today a business person in tourism. His business is called Saki Sizwe Tourism. Our NARISEC program is yielding results. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the word of our former president, Nelson Mandela, I quote, he once said, I quote, "We were all human until race disconnected us, religion separated us, politics divided us, and wealth classified us," close quote. Siyaquba.
Sithokoze mhlonishwa. Olandelayo ngubaba Umbinda from the PAC.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. Over the last 2 decades of democratic South Africa, the program of land reform has adopted a strongly pro-market approach. But as we speak today, only less than 10% of the population, less than 10%, 70, sorry, it is a shame that more than 2 decades into this new dispensation, we still have more than 70 of the productive land being owned by 10% of the population, of whom remain white males. As a country, we invest about 2 billion on the land reform program, and this is a cause for concern because most of our budget, it goes to programs that have no meaningful impact in the lives of our people. Chairperson of the session and members of parliament, as the PAC, we consider a land issue as a matter of life and death, and it has a direct impact on the well-being of our people. Chairperson, the seaside is part of our land, and I mention this because our local fishermen and women are being marginalized and disadvantaged by the regulations set by the department concerned. The allocated budget for 2018-19 for land reform program is 2.7 billion. But the theory that you read in the department plans, in the departmental plans, give a picture of the land reform program being accelerated. As PAC, we are calling for a restoration of land back to its rightful owners. To those who do not understand the sensitivity of this issue, they must also understand, I think they will agree with me, that the crime is a continuous offense. We all remember the Berlin Conference 1884, where the Europeans were busy slicing Africa like a piece of cake for their own benefit. A stolen property in terms of the international law, it remains stolen until it is restored to its rightful owners. The international law also addresses the question of unjust enrichment. So even if you are beneficiaries of this present setup, at least you need to understand, because this is the South African history that we got from the then apartheid government. No one in terms of the international law may benefit from his own illegality. So there is no question, there is no need for us to discuss whether they should be compensated or not. Because to us as PAC, we regard land as a commodity. It cannot be sold, it cannot be bought. It is a...
Thank you, Honorable Mbinda.
It is a gift that we are given by God in this country. Thank you. We support with reservations.
Sithokoze baba Umbinda, sokubiza manje Honorable Walters from the DA.
Honourable Chair, I would like to assume the role of a TV critic, as Parliament has become a well-watched favourite of our public in our connected age. The members present and the public watching have been entertained by another session of what is best described as the pilot episode of a new soap opera called 9 Months of Electionitis. In this pilot episode, we saw a couple of themes being set up for viewer entertainment over the coming electoral season. Let's start with the main actor, the ANC, an aging and declining former A-list movie star who recently went to the plastic surgeon to get a cosmetic makeover. You know, Ramaphoria. This ANC wants to reboot its fading career in government, yet the budget is being cut. All these things that are being claimed, the basic facts are the land reform budget has been cut and has been cut for the last couple of years. In this reboot, the nostalgia of the struggle is evoked and amplified in the hope that former fans of the actor keep on watching the show. This is now where Honourable Nchabaleng came in, and he had a good, heartfelt, nostalgic reference to the great patriotic war of the Second World War for some reason or the other. Artificial tension is created with other characters. Although in the case of Sheikh Imam or Honorable Sheikh Imam, it was a bit of comic relief as well. Racial groups are being set up against one another to create artificial tension, and of course that's used to exploit to get fake ratings up. Dramatic effect, poorly executed because not all ANC members read the original script in the form of the about turn on our constitution, is used to titillate a largely misunderstood target market. We have the Honourable Deputy Minister Cronin here, who last year had a magnificent defence of Section 25 of the Constitution, yet somehow the ANC now has done an about turn. You are contradicting yourselves. Fake props like the premature reintroduction of the opening of land claims, you know, conferences, one or two beneficiaries that while the rest of the people are not benefiting are getting trotted out. It's all fake props that are used to take attention away from the real series that everyone should be watching, the betrayal of beneficiaries, the forgotten poor, especially those on communal and state land, far more compelling because it's rooted in reality. Above all, the show suffers from the same defects of previous shows aimed at rebooting this tiresome actor. A budget that doesn't match the hype. Lots of money spent on friends of the actor with no improvement in performance. Lots of poorly crafted policies, never properly thought through, as we saw with the reopening of land claims. Every election we have changes in legislation because you're using the legislative process to get electoral gain. No, this is the ANC has talent show that we are seeing just now. Increasingly another show called Property Rights for the Poor, a show that everyone should be watching, supported by the Western Cape government, the coalition metros, is the talk of the business. This show shows real human interest, compelling as it relates to the real experiences of struggling South Africans. It recounts a wonderful story of title deeds being conveyed, real ownership to the poor, and self-confidence and pride that it gives to new stakeholders in the economy. It shows how a caring government provides proper support to beneficiaries, and like all good series, keeps innovating and attracting bigger budgets and investment. 9 months of election-nighters seems to be a cobbled-together script, characterized by complicated fights around artistic direction, because you got Honourable Junius Malema as your artistic director, and will fail unless it emulates the successes seen in the Western Cape or the coalition metros. This actor should maybe accept that it's time to retire. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Walters. We now go to Honorable PJ Mguni from the ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I just want to dedicate this input to the loving memory of the daughter to our chair, who passed on and was laid to rest in the past few days. And at the same breath, dedicate to my own niece-in-law, who's being laid to rest as we speak in Pagamisa. The name of the daughter's chair is Bawinile Mary Jane Nhlapo, while my own niece is Aviwe Sehlabaga. We continue to do work in the name of the fallen ones and also in the name of the future generations. Greetings to you, Honorable House Chair, to the Minister in our midst and other ministers. I can see Honorable DH, I call him that. The Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of the House, our guests, notably MEC Mtembu, the officials, the acting DG and officials of the department, and everyone else in the room. Throughout these EPCs, throughout these mini plenaries, there has been a clear message coming overwhelmingly from the ANC to dedicate the space in recognizing the April month, the Heroes Month in a sense, that it's a month that in the context of this year that marks the centenary of the heroes and heroines, Baba Madiba and Masisulu, but that the April month itself robbed us of our own beloved Mawini Madikizela Mandela, our own Dr. Zola Skweyiya. It is a month just about 11 days ago, Honorable House Chair, that saw the 25th anniversary of the brutal slaying of one of our outstanding sons of the soil, Christopher Tembisile Martinani, who was slain in cold blood by the agents of the enemy. In fact, through Comrade Chris Hani's slaying, we were able to get the ANC to force the regime to determine the date of negotiations, or rather the date of elections. And this is how, no matter what distortions can come from whatever corner, this is how the 27th of April 1994 came about, through the blood, in particular, of the fallen General Secretary Chris Hani. I do want, and I did think that, Honorable House Chair, it is important because there's a lot of, if I can say in quotes, clever people who really disregard the history of the revolution. If you like, clever blacks, who would like to distort everything about us. One just felt that in discussing the land, it will be important just to visit some aspects about negotiations. I have already indicated that the 27th April breakthrough came about as a result of Chris Hani's own life and blood. About negotiations, however, because there's a distortion that these negotiations, World Trade Center was about a sellout, everything was sold out there. We want to say to the peacetime heroes, all wars end in the negotiation table. And so was the case with our own National Democratic Revolution. It is the ANC that had to take up arms. It is the ANC that had to go to exile. It is the ANC who had to mourn their fallen families while they were in exile everywhere throughout the world. It was the ANC that informed and swelled the ranks of Umkhonto weSizwe, were languishing some of the leaders in jails, in prisons, and so forth. So if alongside APLA, let me concede that point because you are my cousin, Honorable PAC President. Alongside APLA, I'm not going to weigh to what extent, but let's concede the point. PAC is a liberation movement. We do know them. We shared the battle trenches with the PAC. Yes, correct. Yes. Definitely not EFF. In future, if some Savimbi type war or Renamo type war were to erupt, we don't know on which side the commanders of the EFF would actually fall. All wars end in the boardroom. I emphasize this point in talking about negotiations. All wars end in talks. All wars end in talks. But for a moment, for those who don't know our history, the 7th Party Congress of the SACP, our allies, the ANC, sat in Cuba. In that Congress, the party resolved that the conditions were ripe for mass insurrection. And we toppled the regime by force of arms. So clearly, in the period preceding negotiations, the conditions were characterized as ripe. Inside the ANC and inside Umkhonto weSizwe, the Operation Vula machinery was being set up. Operation Vula, those who want to know more about it, Bobu Charles are still in our midst, Bobu Charles Ngagula and others. They can tell you more about Operation Vula and how the regime was going to be toppled. Pre-1990, we highlight for those who say negotiations sold out and sold out the land, because that's where I'm actually going with the point. We want to highlight that there was a Harare Declaration, it's of 1988. We want to highlight that there was a Freedom Charter, it's of 1955. We want to highlight that although out of context, Honorable Carter is right to raise, I had prepared the point about the ready to govern document, although she raises it out of context altogether, right? So pre-1994 breakthrough, there was all this process which necessitated that when the regime could no longer continue to rule in the same old way, given the pressure of the 4 pillars of the National Democratic Revolution, the mass mobilization, the armed struggle, the international solidarity, and the underground work, the negotiation, de Klerk, I was here, I was privileged, I was here as a young boy at Grand Parade on the 2nd of April 1990 when de Klerk was forced to unband the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe APLA, the SACP, and all other band organizations. When de Klerk had to say that on the 11th, it was the 2nd on this date, he had to say that on the 11th, he was going to set Nelson Mandela free. So negotiations came about because the regime had succumbed. The regime had given in. The ANC in exile had asked us to discuss the constitutional guidelines because there's going to be the issue about Constitutional Clause 25. The constitutional guidelines that were discussed in the UDF structures, in all our structures inside our country, were very much what transpired at the end of the day in what we saw, what became the South Africa's constitution, led by none other than Nelson Mandela and the current President Cyril Ramaphosa at World Trade Center.
Just take Honorable Khawula, on
Yes,
what
I'm taking the lessons, but may I ask a question?
would you want to take a question?
After my input, I hope to have time. I want to deal with that question. Thank you.
Okay.
After.
Continue.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. At the negotiations table, the ANC delivered on its mandate. All the forces that rallied behind the ANC delivered on the mandate. The ANC delivered, even homeland governments, pity now the General Bandu Holomisa and UDM are sitting on the other side. But we think that on issues of land, we should find ourselves in the common fold. That, in brief, would just sketch the era of negotiations that came about with the Constitution. As it stood and as it stands,
Honorable Filtani, why are you rising?
Which ANC would want to join if one
Honorable,
wanted to
what's your
cross
point
over?
of order? Continue, Honorable Mguni, there's no point of order.
Thank you so much, House Chair. Right. The current Constitution as we have it, as the ANC, we are discussing, following the House resolution of the 28th of February, we are discussing expropriation of land without compensation. But the context is clear. Our colleagues in the EFF are free to actually lobby us, but we wonder if we really mean the one and the same thing about expropriation without compensation. Policy evolution for the ANC meant that in the aftermath of 1994, we had to see a period of a willing buyer, willing seller, where you had to persuade everyone in the context and in the interest of nation building. But just before that, at Pulukwane and at Mangaung, at the respective conferences of the ANC resolved to emphasize the aspect about the just and equitable dispensation, just and equitable, meaning therefore no longer the willing buyer, willing seller, because some of the sellers were just very exorbitant, unscrupulous with their land prices. In fact, our own department, led by the then Minister Nkwinti, had to establish what is now called the OVG, the Office of the Valuer General, because we had to moderate the exorbitant prices by unscrupulous sellers who were selling to our own state and to our own government. Right. Now, having noted that, land tenure, as has been alluded by the Honorable Minister correctly so, composes of three components: land tenure, land redistribution, and land restitution. I just wanted to add to all what my colleagues in the executive and in the portfolio committee have said on tenure security, to say that let our people know and let our people hear this. We have seen that USIS Esther, this bill that was actually drawn in 1996, had some flaws and weaknesses. So 2.8 million people on the farms were being victimized willy-nilly by the landlords. So we have now, the National Assembly, this Honorable House, has passed the amendment to the ESTA, Extension of Security of Tenure Act, through an amendment bill. It's now before the NA. We dare say to our people, to the public, that by the end of the legacy period of the 5th Parliament, ESTA will have been tightened up. I've been privileged to talk to some comrades, including at COSATU, to say to them, with that ESTA adopted as it stands, it's going to be very difficult that any one of the 2.8 million inhabitants of our farms are going to be victimized. Their tenure security will be tightened forever. Of course, we have made a call also to our beloved department to say, but look, the land rights management facility, these lawyers that represent government and all of us to defend the 2.8 million people who are victimized on farms, they're not doing their best. We take the opportunity to call on the legal fraternity. Some of you members of the, esteemed members of the legal fraternity, please up your act and specialize in the land portfolio. It is troubled. We are inspired by one learned friend, Nguka Itobi, who has even written a book. He is at the forefront of the defense of our cause and the cause of our people. We think that more lawyers must follow the suit and more lawyers must team up in defense of our people. That's how you conduct a revolution in a democratic dispensation. You don't just call on all sorts of things and hope that they will. Then going over to the restitution, I am privileged, House Chair, to indicate that in 2 months' time from now, by 31st July, the Restitution Amendment Act, Amendment Bill, which I was privileged to introduce at the National Assembly, will have been wrapped up at the NA in terms of public hearings and everything else, and also ready for second reading debate and ready for the NCOP to engage with. By the end of the current term, I am mindful it's within 10 months, 11 months from now, the restitution would have been reopened. Our people would be lodging claims. Our people would be claiming their land back. Our people would be coming before our department, our own commission, to say, here is our claim. Can we be compensated appropriately? Or can we get our land back, as the case might be, right? That's the issue insofar as the land restitution, Honorable House Chair, for all our people to know that the ANC will not rest until the land claims, so to speak, restitution simply means claims for reparation. Until the land claims are reopened, that's the case, we will do it before this parliament, fifth parliament rises. The land redistribution will exceed, House Chair, has been a troubled area. Various percentages have been thrown in, but trouble on all ends. Our people more often choose money. Now, if you choose 40,000 for that 2 kilometer, kind of 2 square kilometer piece of land, money gets used up, and then the land is never used up. We will caution people, it's your choice, but please choose land and do not choose money, right? Insofar as land redistribution, we note all the difficulties that we have been through. We have already indicated. We went through an era of willing buyer, willing seller, just and equitable. We are now discussing the tool together with everyone out there in society via the subcommittee of Parliament of Rules. We are discussing expropriation without compensation. I'll just need to, in passing on this expropriation without compensation, House Chair, make this indication that the land grabs that some of our colleagues in the House really call for have no space.
2 minutes.
Thank you. The land grabs have no space in our dispensation. The land grabs, one of the parties sitting there next to you giving you powers in the metros, calls for land grabs. Your partner that is giving you power the land grabs has no space. Land grabs means each one for himself and the devil takes the hindmost. We do not think that land grabs are the way to go at all. We think that a systemic scientific approach needs to be taken. And also we want to caution the farmers that there are some farmers who are beginning to refinance their properties, to encumber their properties. We think that it is unholy. We think that it is disingenuous. We think it should not be done. Honorable Van Dam, you can do well to tell those farmers. We do not agree. The ANC supports the budget vote. Thank you.
Sithokoze mhlonishwa Mnguni. Siyobawa Marina Minister afeleleje ka go responda.
Malibongwe Chair, let me thank Honorable Deputy Ministers thank all members of parliament for your very enthusiastic, but also quite some valuable inputs. But, you know, I did not know, honorable member, that you could scream for nothing like that. I used to respect you from outside, but let me leave you on that. I wish your senior, who was sitting next to you, Groenewald, was here, honorable, because I wanted to tell him that please don't keep opening up old wounds. I was sitting there listening to Honorable Nchabeling and looking at Honorable Skwacha and wondering what Honorable Mashego Dlamini is thinking. When we were young, listen and learn, there was talking about learning from history. And the first co-president with Masisulu, president of UDF, Dr. Peter Nchabeling, was killed physically in a police station at night in Schoonort. I happen to have been living a few kilometers from there. We were the first to go witness his body slumbered against the walls. Your father, Honorable Nchabeling. I know it will be difficult for you to come here and say, learning from our history and lessons and talk about him. But every time I look at you, I think of him and what he fought for. So this thing of land ownership that Madiba spoke about, that we will work with pride, that it was declared crime against humanity, is not a play matter. It's not a matter of speculation of prices. It's not a matter of frustrating the government and make it impossible to restitute land and make sure that we all walk tall and be proud to be South African. Please, do not touch raw nerves. Don't make this painful part of our history a joke. It is even more painful when it's women joining in and becoming part of this and turning it into a joke. Please, Van Dam, don't learn wrong lessons. Don't enter this. You were very young. You don't even know what happened to us. I don't know where else he was. Honorable Mguni, you have responded to the real questions that I wanted to respond to. You know, I listened to Sheikh in the National Assembly, but I've never heard him so clear about what he thought we should do. He's left a three-page note here for me on the things that he thinks we should be doing. We will not come here, and it wasn't neither my predecessor nor me that will come here and say it's okay for us to have the vacancies, a number of vacancies at high level as we do. It's not right. It needs to be corrected. And we will, as President instructed, quicken our steps. You know, this country and the future we hold in trust for our children. And this country will become freer the day we show our children a good lesson. That it will not be that it's Friday and I'm rushing for a flight. I will not do justice to what is right. Deal with a very sensitive matter like land. And be like Honorable Groenewald, insult people and leave, because that will not change. Because back home where you're going, you are still going back to underpaid maids who can't even bury their loved ones in the farms you own. So please, don't do that to our people. So what remains of us is indeed follow up on making sure that we stop the speculation
1 minute
on land through our valuer general. Speculation, stop. Redress the imbalances of the past now. Implement on all the policies and work together. Stop those who are flying to America and Kai to come back home and participate in the constitutional amendment bill. I'm sorry, constitutional amendment, not bill, you know. Constitutional amendment review of parliament, of your parliament. You can scream, but you know the truth. There is no Australia, no America that's going to bring a solution to us because we had liberated ourselves.
Order, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Your time
Thank you
has
very
now
much
expired.
to all the participants,
Speaker.
MECs,
Thank you.
honorable members,
We have not
and
received
all.
our response.
I
can
thank you
tell
all.
now.
Thank you
Serious.
very much. I just want to thank our guests in the gallery. We really acknowledge your presence here every time you come. And I want to thank all the honorable members for availing themselves to this mini plenaries. That, honorable members, concludes the business of the mini plenary session, and the mini plenary will now rise. Thank you.